Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, just slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
So I think we're just going to have to address it. We're just going to have to address the mammoth in the room. The fact that Brad is not on the show today. No, that's not the mammoth in the room. The mammoth in the room is all of these wacky coaching rumors. No, it's not. It's not. The mammoth in the room is obviously the nickname leak from the Utah Hockey Club that had us all refreshing X over and over and over again frantically. We got to see which people in our Discord don't get enough sleep because we were all up chatting into the wee hours on a school night about the same thing. The fact that the team had a little bit of a whoopsie and maybe let the cat out of the bag, or the mammoth out of the bag in this case, about the team nickname. So we're going to dive into that. We'll get to those coaching rumors as well, and many, many, many other things here today, despite the fact that we are not led by our fearless leader, Brad, today. But we do have with us Clean Hits Corey and Clean Hits Kenny, and who really needs any more than that at the end of the day? How you doing, Corey? How are you? How are things up there in the Great White North?
I mean, the Leafs won their second playoff series in the last 21 years last night. So, Stanley Cup Stanley Cup parade plans being drawn up today, and before they get swept by the Florida Panthers. But hey, enjoying the Stanley Cup playoffs. My bracket is already broken with Tampa going out, but still enjoying it.
Yeah. I think all of our brackets got broken because we all underestimated the Edmonton Oilers. That includes you, Kenny. Any other major upsets that you saw in these playoffs that are really hurting you?
No, I mean, I still I was worried about my Dallas pick over Colorado. But with them being shorthanded, they're still putting up a pretty good fight against Colorado. So I was a little worried about that, and I just cannot wait to rub it in your guys' faces because I think I was the only one that chose Dallas. And it was partially 100% because of the fact that my bracket looked eerily similar to yours, and I'm like, I can't do that. That would be too too boring. So I did learn something about myself yesterday, and that is I forced myself to take a day off, and I went golfing for the first time since I was 10 years old. And nice. The two things that I learned about myself is if you take a day off, it just makes the next day absolutely miserable, and that I am a horrific golfer. So all the beautiful, lovely families that live on the Las Colinas golf course, I am sorry about any patches you're going to have to do to your stucco, because there was definitely a couple times where I'm like, we got to get out of here. I was like, oh man, I just didn't want to hear the yelp of a dog. Other than that, I think I only hit the stucco, but sorry to them.
Yeah, it was a big golf theme in my family here as well this week. I took a little bit of time off of work, not a whole day, but a couple hours on Monday, and went down and saw my son, who was playing in a golf classic fundraiser for his school. He had gotten the lone exception to be the only elementary schooler in the tournament. Wow. It was mostly an adult tournament, but he got to hit from the 40s, which was a big advantage to his team. And he looked great out there. Kenny, I don't know how good you were when you were 10, but this 10-year-old is pretty darn good. His last two scorers from this weekend and from the classic were, I think he shot an 83 and an 84. Wow. And 84. So he's getting there, man. He's getting there. I, on the other hand, am a horrible golfer, and I don't think I've ever played 18 holes in my entire life. So
that's what we did yesterday, and they didn't tell me that. I thought we were doing like nine holes. And so I think your son's score of 83, I think that's my handicap. Like that's how many shots I have to stay behind everybody. But hey, needless to say, it was fun. I just went in with a lot of confidence. I'm like, hey, I played hockey my entire life. How hard could this be? And I just could not get the idea of bending my elbows. I was always looking like Happy Gilmore out there trying to do a slap shot. So, but more to come. We'll see.
Yeah, that's my son, man. I'm coaching his 10U practice tonight. In fact, we are thankfully I'm no longer coaching any team called the Ducks, but his team, unfortunately, of all the names assigned by USA Hockey to this rink in this age group, we were assigned the Ice Hogs. The Ice
Oh.
Hogs. It's the name of our summer league team.
Mm.
Year after the Rockford Ice Hogs, the Chicago Blackhawks affiliate. So yeah, go Hogs! I'm the head coach of the 10U Ice Hogs. So
Yep.
for that tonight. So we said we were going to address the mammoth in the room. We have not yet. The name got leaked. There's conspiracy theories galore. What do you guys think? Was it real? How are you feeling about the situation, about the leak, the name itself? Anything you want to get into in terms of your preferences with the name, the colors, what it could mean for the overall design? Let's get into the nitty gritty of the creative and the circumstances around the name leak.
Yeah, I think it was just a social media slip up. I don't think this was something that was planned. Happy with the name, obviously. I know we did our own little campaign around the Mammoth Club for it. So of the three finalists, definitely preferred Mammoth over Hockey Club and Outlaws by far. As far as the color scheme, keep it the same. Don't want to add any like copper or brown or anything to it. You can still, the Mammoth itself doesn't have to be powder blue, but you can still keep the existing color scheme, and just very happy that looks to be the pick. And I think we're getting pretty close to a launch here, because if it is going to be at the draft, that's only 7 weeks away, and it could potentially be sooner than that too.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they're going to try to get ahead of it after this mishap, and maybe we actually get the official announcement quicker than we expected. But you never know with these things. I have been Team Mammoth since day one. I like Mammoth more than Yeti or Yetis. I just thought, the idea of like this haunting mammoth trumpet sound after the goal scored, and kind of like, paying homage to the Coyotes with that haunting howl at the end. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I love the tusks up that was going around on Twitter, still going around on Twitter. I love the clubber idea where the mascot is not a mammoth. It's actually a caveman with a club, just to kind of tie it all in. I love everything about it. I think I believe, I don't know if it was Bagley that said he doesn't anticipate the color palette changing at all. And that was like a month or so ago. So that's good news too. I don't think we need to add anything to it. The jerseys are beautiful. The only thing I can suggest is a third jersey or an alternate jersey down the road where it's just all baby blue, including the breezers and the gloves, the helmet, etc., and like a white and black front crest or something. That would just be my absolute dream. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Trent kind of talked me off the ledge. I was like, maybe this is a conspiracy theory and that they did this to just mess with us. And Elliot Friedman was kind of speculating the same. And I'm like, no, because like Mammoth has been the one I wanted all along. And if they're going to throw out Mammoth first to throw people off the scent, then I'm like, well, it's obviously not Mammoth, right? And so the only other alternative is Outlaws. And I just cannot for the life of me picture a baby blue outlaw. I know the name is fun, I guess, but Mammoth is the way to go. So I'm really, really happy with the news.
Plus, it has a natural tie to Utah, right? Whereas Yeti is an Asian thing. So with the actual history of Mammoth and bones and skeletons and all those things connected to the state, that just makes it extra special.
Yeah, and it's a real thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, Kenny, your point about the Outlaws, I mean, the name is cool. Utah Outlaw kind of rolls off the tongue pretty well. But I think in execution, the branding is a little rough. It's hard to like avoid some kind of kitschy or negative stereotypes. And like, I mean, barbed wire is kind of like a dated look. I mean, there's a lot about it that teeters into really, really corny, really, really fast. And it's really hard to thread that needle when it comes to design elements. I think with Mammoth, the options are endless and you can do so much with it. Especially with third jerseys and kids merch. I mean, you could run wild with like Flintstones themed kind of style choices, where it's sort of that caveman era ice age thing, and you can put together a lot of really cool brand elements around that. I think just as like secondary logos, nothing that would ever show up on the ice probably, but I think the team shop could be filled with a ton of really cool stuff. And then like little media clips and animations and all the different creative you can put around Mammoth, I think it's going to be really great. For me, the one down shot is the word itself. Between Utah Yeti, Utah Outlaw, and then Utah Mammoth. Maybe not the strongest word sound when it comes to saying it out loud. It's a little bit hard to get used to, but I think if we can get used to Kraken in just a couple of years, we can get used to anything.
Yeah.
So I think before long, it'll be a foregone conclusion. Nobody's ever going to think twice about it. I mean, for goodness sakes, we're talking about a league that has a team called the Senators in it. And nobody seems too worried about that. I mean, a marquee team in the league is called the Leafs. Get out of town with that nonsense. I understand that the Canadians have put that on their flag, but that's a fake flag anyways. You guys just made that up in like the 1970s, right? Before that, it was a Union Jack, I think.
That was, the UK.
Yeah. So that's like, I mean, just because the flag was lame doesn't mean the team needs to be lame too. I'm sorry. That was probably too offensive. I'm sorry to Brogan Houston. I'm sorry to Rod Anderson. And I'm sorry to you, Corey. As far as the slip up being a conspiracy or on purpose or something like that, I was telling the guys before the show, like, as somebody who's been in a lot of like creative meetings on marketing teams and strategy meetings, I just can't see the winning idea for teasing out the new name being something that causes the team to nuke the YouTube page and take it offline for days at a time. I don't think that one's getting the rubber stamp or the green light from management in any way, shape, or form. So if they were going to tease out the name, I promise you 100% this is not how they would do it.
Yeah. We also talked about it a little bit, like, oh man, what if they're so embarrassed that there was a slip up that they just completely abandon the Mammoth idea and then go back to one of the other alternatives? And then as we were talking about it, or as I was talking about it, I realized how dumb that is, because they have to be pumping in merch right now. I mean, like Trent mentioned before the show, their creative process is over. I mean, everything's probably printed. We got ads running, or ads being created that are going to start running. And it's a perfect time to, store all that stuff in the Delta Center while it's under construction, because Ryan Smith doesn't want his house being littered with a bunch of boxes and all that. So I don't think they're gonna pivot away from Mammoth at this point. I think it's just locked in, and I couldn't be more excited. One quick little note from one of our Discord members, I believe it was Michael Whiskered Rose. He brought up something that was kind of funny. It's going to be cool when the Utah Mammoth played the Nashville Predators, because it's going to be like Ice Age.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an awesome night for the kids. Like, there's got to be a lot of funny videos that'll come along with that. But yeah, overall, super pumped about the Mammoth name.
Yep, 100%. That'll be great. And another perfect example of just an unfortunately named team. I mean, that's a dumb name. It really is.
That is a rough one.
It's a dumb team name. And we've somehow become accustomed to that team. Their overly complicated logo with a 17-foot long tooth that obviously is useless. That poor cat would starve to death because it can't take a bite of anything. It's overly intricate, and their jerseys are yellow. A lot going on in Nashville that we've all learned to tolerate over the last 20 years that they've been in the league. So I think the days of people criticizing Mammoth for having kind of a funny sound to it will be very, very short. So all of those jokes about Mammoth, which are bad, we did joke a little bit about the Mammoth in the room being the coaching rumors, actually, which I think we do need to address. Obviously, the Twitterverse and the national media podcast world has been aflame ever since the Tampa Bay Lightning have gotten into trouble in round one and have exited the playoffs prematurely yet again, that perhaps they would be looking for a change with John Cooper. And there have been whispers and murmurs and little bits of smoke around this concept of John Cooper coming to Utah to sync up with his buddy Ryan Smith yet again in some role on the team. We've heard rumors about that being as a coach. We've heard rumors about that being as a GM. We've heard rumors about that being this summer. We've heard rumors about it being next summer. There are so many rumors this time of year in the NHL. If you're a new fan, buckle up and get your grains of salt ready, because you're going to need a lot of them as the rumors go flying. So what do you guys make of this rumor in particular? Corey, what do you think about the fact that we're hearing from so many different sources that John Cooper is somehow connected to the Utah Hockey Club?
I mean, really, where do you start? If he is interested, I mean, I know today it was confirmed that he's returning to Tampa next year, but in the event that he is interested in Utah, how do you not at least consider it? Even if you're totally happy with Andre Tourigny, you look at what St. Louis just did they had a coach they were happy with in Drew Bannister, but Montgomery became available, so they had to make the move. And then you look at what Cooper's done in Tampa, 4 Stanley Cup finals, 2 championships. You look at his resume, he had the Calder Cup in Norfolk. He had 2 championships as well in the North American League. Earlier this year, speaking of Canada, he had the win at the Four Nations face-off over, remember that? They defeated Team USA. So, with that sort of resume, right, how do you not consider him? But beyond that, like general manager, I know he was the GM of the year in, I think it was the NAHL. It was the GM of the year in the
USHL?
AHL, I want to say. Yeah, USHL with Green Bay. But I don't care. That resume is nothing compared to Bill Armstrong. He's not qualified to be an NHL GM, and we've seen that with other NHL teams. With Barry Trotz taking over in Nashville, they might have been. I mean, I know San Jose was at the bottom, but Barry Trotz spent $130 million in the summer and missed the playoffs by almost 30 points. He's a coach, and John Cooper is a coach. And if he wants to be a general manager, start somewhere else in hockey operations. Be a pro scout. Do what Shane Doan is doing in Toronto and take an assistant role and work your way up. But to think that John Cooper could be immediately thrust into the GM spot, especially when you already have a GM who's probably one of the, I think right now there's probably 8 GMs who kind of separate themselves from the rest of the pack in the NHL, and Bill Armstrong is one of them. So just the thought of replacing Bill Armstrong with John Cooper at the GM spot is just, that makes no sense to me.
Right. Let me do a little quick housekeeping there real quick, Kenny, and I'll throw it to you. So what we're referencing there is rumors from Frank Saravalli at the Daily Face-Off, who's one of the most credible national insiders in the sport and a friend of the show. So if you haven't seen that episode, go check it out from a few months back when we had Frank on. But Frank's the man. Frank's connected. He knows what he's talking about. He's probably the premier insider in the game right now. Some would argue Elliot Friedman, but I see a very disparate directional trend in terms of Frank's star rising and Elliot's maybe slowing down a little bit. So he's a guy to be trusted in the national media. He's been first on so many big stories recently. And the fact
including
that
Utah existing.
Including Utah existing, yes. And he got a lot of blowback on that. He took a lot of heat for a long time from a lot of outlets and stuck to his guns and was proven correct. And he had indicated that an NHL GM, as his source, which is a pretty good source last time I checked, had been whispering about John Cooper's desire to become a general manager, potentially with connections to Utah as far back as January. And I know that we've heard a lot of whispers about this online and from various different people as well about John Cooper potentially being tied to Utah. We had all in this group assumed that it was in a coaching capacity. And if you're a member of our Clean Hits Discord, you would have seen the conversations about John Cooper as head coach of the Utah Hockey Club for months now. But today, Julien Brisebois, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning, did indicate that John Cooper would be back as head coach next year. There's not going to be a mutual parting of ways, according to GM Julien Brisebois as of today. Cooper does have 1 year remaining on the 2-year deal he signed. When he did sign that deal last summer, it raised a lot of eyebrows that it would be such a short deal for such an accomplished coach. Did that signal the end? We've recently seen with Rick Tocchet, Mike Sullivan, other coaches where there's kind of a mutual parting of ways and agreed upon buyout. It's not like a player contract. It's a little bit more negotiable in the way that you can get out of it. But Julian Breezeball did confirm today that that won't be happening. So this John Cooper to Utah thing is going to be something that we're probably going to be having to keep an eye on and hear lots of rumors about for the next 12 months or so. But it's not something that we're going to see come to fruition anytime soon, according to Julian Breezeball. So with that, Kenny, I just wanted to reorient the conversation here a little bit. What are your thoughts on what you're hearing, given the context of all of that?
No, yeah, I think that was necessary. So I appreciate you doing that. And then, like you said, I trust everything that Frank says. I don't remember a time that he has been wrong. And if he was, he quickly corrects it. 30 seconds later. I think he did that with the Rotten trade recently. That being said, I hate every part of it. I hate it. I'm going to be blunt and honest about this. So there's a few things that I specifically don't like. One, Corey already touched on it. You are an outstanding, amazing coach. Then be a coach. Be a coach. All right. You also touched on the Trotz thing. Trotz, again, a very, very accomplished coach. Look at what he did in Nashville this year. I mean, he's just like spending money to spend money. The third thing, look at what Tampa Bay has done. I know they've won a couple cups, right? But they trade draft picks like it's nothing, right? It's just, their cabinet is so thin. So after this window closes, it's going to be a monumental teardown where you're going to see big names you would have never thought leave the Lightning. They're going to be leaving the Lightning just to recoup some draft picks and help build their future again. If that, and I know that he's not, and maybe he is, like, maybe he does have his hands involved in that as well. Like, yeah, just don't, get rid of him, bring in whoever, bring Yanni Gord back. I love him as a player. If that's the mentality that we have for somebody that could potentially come in as a general manager, I don't want that. I mean, Bill Armstrong has earned his seat at the table among the elite GMs because of how patient and smart and savvy his deals have been. And just to, I guess my last thing that I really don't like about this is, like, I don't want to foster an environment where, just because you're a buddy of the owner, that you can kind of just come in and uproot whoever you want to get the job that you want. That, to me, is the exact opposite of what you want. That reminds me kind of that old boys club that we saw a while in Arizona. And it still happens in hockey. And you don't want to foster that environment, especially after all the grueling years that we went through as Coyotes fans. And I wouldn't call this year grueling in Utah, but it was definitely a lot of growing pains. You don't want to just like throw that all away. And I think it would be wildly, wildly disappointing to see Bill Armstrong thrust it out just to make John Cooper a general manager. So I agree with you. I think he needs to put in the legwork elsewhere. If he wants to do it, that's fine. I'm not telling him not to do it. Seems like a smart guy, but I would love him as a coach. I like Bear. I think Bear has been great. I think he's been great with the kids. I mean, you see the numbers that people have been putting on up under him. That being said, these coaches don't come around very often. So sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off, all of the St. Louis situation that you mentioned. But if it's a general manager position, I'm going to be one unhappy Mammoth. I'll tell you that.
The one thing I would add is if you're Andre Tourigny, you better make the playoffs next year, because I don't think John Cooper is going to sign an in-season extension in Tampa. He'll be a free agent next summer, where he can re-sign with Tampa at that point. But if Utah doesn't make the playoffs and John Cooper's available in a year where Bill Armstrong essentially said playoff or bust for 2026, I think that's when a change could happen. And Andre Tourigny only has 2 years left on his contract, which was signed in Arizona, so it's probably not that much money. So it's very easy to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I think, that's a person that we probably should talk about a little bit, is Andre Tourigny and all of this, right? So John Cooper is a very shiny object. I think that he is one of the elite coaches in the game. I think he's proven it at every level. I think as far as merit and a proven resume is concerned, it does not get better than John Cooper. Andre Tourigny is a guy who had a spectacular non-NHL resume when he got his job to be a builder. He's very, very accomplished at lower levels, just as John Cooper was. Pretty similar paths in certain ways to the NHL. Cooper's had a ton of success because of the situation that he was in. Andre Tourigny was put into a very different situation. So the expectations have to be a little bit different for Andre Tourigny. So it's no slight against Andre Tourigny to say that the idea of adding John Cooper to the team is appealing, right? Because Andre Tourigny has not proven what John Cooper has at the NHL level yet. Having said that, he's done a bang-up job as a shepherd of young players, as a developer of young talent. We're seeing the next generation of Utah Mammoth players step up into big roles and perform, which is just what you want to see from the coach that you're entrusting with guiding your young talent through the rebuild. So he's done an amazing job, but the team is at a watershed moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're separating from the rebuild. They are moving into playoff contention as a sole focus. And it remains to be seen whether Andre Tourigny is the right guy for that mode. And I think it's great that Brisebois is bringing Cooper back for this season, because I really want to see Andre Tourigny get a shot at a team with a higher level of expectations and see what he can do. Because maybe he rises to the challenge and we don't have to have the old John Cooper, because maybe we've got the new one right here already.
Love that. Yep. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. We're going to see a pretty exciting summer. We've been talking about this for weeks now, just due to the fact that we missed the playoffs by so little amount, and it's playoffs or bust. I think the moment that you make a change, an unnecessary change just for the sake of change, is when you start shooting yourself in the foot. And I think it's bought us some time, and I'm really excited. I think both Bill Armstrong and Andre Tourigny have more than earned their opportunity to see how far they could take this team into the playoffs.
Yeah, good teams talk about being percentages better every year. We're going to be this percent better. I need every player to be this percent better. If we get this percent better, we win. And you see the progression. Our young players are getting better by leaps and bounds. Even Clayton Keller is stepping up. The core valuable veterans, Sergachev's game took a step. And then you see it in the team record as well. You know, we're getting those percentage points better. It's been a linear and steady progression. So I think we owe it to ourselves to see what we've got there. There are some teams around the league, however, who have had some regression and some disappointing seasons, and have had to make some changes. So that has led to a situation where we have just this unbelievable amount of vacant coaching positions, an unbelievable amount of available coaching talent on the market. And it's provided a pretty unique situation, even with the John Cooper and Utah Hockey Club drama aside. We saw Mike Sullivan come off the market today, signing with the New York Rangers for a blockbuster coaching deal that's paying him an amount we haven't seen in the league since Mike Babcock got that huge ticket. Mike Sullivan kind of resetting the market for highly paid coaches, much to the grinning satisfaction of Rick Tocchet, who's the remaining belle of the ball, it seems, other than maybe David Carl for teams looking to go a different direction. But Rick Tocchet's probably going to put a few shekels away this summer. So, guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about the available coaches around the league, the available jobs around the league. Maybe we could talk a little bit about which markets are the most appealing, which markets are the least appealing, which coaches are the most appealing, and which are the least appealing, and maybe play a little bit of matchmaker. So, Corey, if you had to list your top 3 available markets that you would want to be the coach of, given their current situation, the level of interest in hockey in the market, the media situation, how competitive they'll be in the future, every factor that you can think of, where would you want to sign as a head coach if you had your choice?
So of those 7, so we have Seattle, we have Vancouver, we have Anaheim, Pittsburgh, Philly, Boston, and Chicago. Those are the 7, and potentially 8, because I think LA is going to make a change here too.
Let's throw LA in there. Let's throw LA in the mix. Yeah.
So of that 7, or of those 8, I guess, you know what? I might go Anaheim. I like the goalie. I like the market is, I mean, you can't really do worse than living in Southern California. From a coaching standpoint, there's not a whole lot of media to deal with. So there's a little less, not necessarily pressure, but a little less scrutiny. And then I think Anaheim just gets a lot of the support from me too, because you look at some of the other teams and like Vancouver's a mess, Seattle's a mess, Pittsburgh is a mess. Chicago has Bedard, but they're so far off. Philly finished at the bottom of the East. I think Boston is going to rebound. I think part of the issue in Boston this year was Jeremy Swayman missed training camp and he was just kind of off kilter for the whole year. But when you have a number 1 goalie, when you have a star player like David Pastrnak, you have a number 1 defenseman in Charlie McAvoy. I don't think Boston's going to win the cup next year, but I think they can bounce back. So for me, I would pick Anaheim, but Boston might be my number 2. And that's another great city to live in as well.
And Corey gave us a good recap on some of those. Any of those stand out to you as obviously your favorite, or any that you'd want to run screaming from?
Yeah, I got a couple of those in each category. So I guess it would depend on if I wanted to win right away or if I wanted to put myself in a position where Andre Tourigny is currently at, and some coaches get hired to get fired. So it would depend on the ownership, but I'm not going to get into that. I think, just from a 10,000 foot view here, I can't stand Seattle's situation. I don't like it at all. Vancouver has some appealing pieces, but I think they're aging. And who knows? Their best player may not even want to play in Vancouver anymore. Might go to New Jersey. I like LA a lot. I think they're a competitive team, but I think that they're kind of aging out. So I hate to be boring here. It's a toss-up for me between Anaheim and I'd say Philly. I know that I really like your idea of Boston, Corey, because I do think that they do have the premier goalie, the premier young defenseman. They've got some good pieces. They've got some aging guys up front, but I like Philly's pipeline more. But if I had to choose one right now, I'd say go coach in Orange County and build around Leo Carlson and all those nice pieces. Olin Zellweger. There's so many I'm not thinking of. You get to live in Anaheim. I mean,
which of the 8 is the least
Disneyland.
desirable
To me?
Yeah, I think, to me as well, I think it might be
Seattle.
Oh God, maybe Seattle. I mean, Pittsburgh, you still get Crosby, so I mean, at least that's interesting. But like Seattle I think Seattle should burn it all down and go for McKenna.
Yeah.
And I mean, burn it all down. There's not a whole lot to burn. So
that's true. They could get to McKenna territory pretty easy. If they wanted to take a bold tack. I think that's a great idea for them, to be honest. So probably not the place you'd want to end up. I think for me, one factor really comes down to who your boss is going to be. I think that's really important, and I'd want to be a big believer in my boss. And I think for me, that's the biggest red flag with Anaheim. I don't have a lot of trust in Pat Verbeek and his
the little ball of hate. You don't trust him?
Yeah. Great player. I'm not sure he's a forward thinker. I think they've amassed a lot of good talent through the draft, but I don't really trust his ability to build. I think that there's a similar issue in Seattle where they're kind of dawdling and shooting for the middle all the time. And I think that for me, Philly is a little murky in that regard. They would probably be my number 2 otherwise. But I think in Chicago, they have Kyle Davidson, who maybe isn't a guy who has the most stellar track record, but I do think he's somebody you could be collaborative with and partner with as a new head coach in that market. I think there's a lot of talent coming up in the pipeline, a lot on the roster, and a lot more to come, honestly, over the next 2 draft classes where they're going to be adding more. And I think with Davidson being a young GM who's relatively inexperienced, you may be able to have a little bit more say in how things go in Chicago than you would in Anaheim, where I wouldn't be surprised if the GM door is always closed. It seems to me like Davidson's door is probably always open. And that would be a guy that I might want to work with if I was planning on being a coach for the long haul.
Okay. So Chicago would be your pick of the litter right now, you think?
I think so, which is interesting because that's the one that David Carl turned down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some theories about that, but we won't get into that. I actually, as you were talking, and this happens a lot with me, maybe I'm just like overly impressionable, but I really, really liked their pickup of Spencer Knight. I think that was one I was so envious of. Not to say I don't like our goalie tandem, but Spencer Knights don't grow on trees, and that was a really, really good sneaky pickup for them. They took advantage of Florida's success and saying, hey, we can afford to do this. It's so interesting that, like, Corey, you and I just, like, a team with Bedard and so much talent that's coming through the pipeline, and to Trent's point, they're gonna be awful for a couple more years. They might have McKenna and Bedard on the same team. And then who's that defenseman? God, is it right?
Schaefer? Oh, Lev Shunov?
No, him too. There isn't. Yeah, Korchinski. That might be the one I'm thinking of. They got Oliver Moore. They've got a bunch of talent there. It is interesting. And Carl being the head coach there, that would have scared the daylights out of me, right? So now that you mention it, I'm still going to go Anaheim, but I do like Chicago a lot more than Philly.
Yeah, I don't think Philly's anywhere close. They've been bad for quite a while, and they don't really have a whole lot to show it. I know they have Mitch Cobb, and they made a pretty nice deal to get Owen Tippett, but like, they haven't had a goalie in 40 years. They still don't have a goalie. And then, like, what else is there? Like,
they've been too non-committal for too long. They don't make bold moves. They don't commit to a strategy. They play in the mushy middle, and that's so unappealing for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're all in agreement that Anaheim and Chicago would probably be the best teams to join as a builder, and maybe Boston and Vancouver. No, I'm sorry. Boston and LA would be probably the top 2 teams to pick if you want to win now. Is that accurate?
Yes. And I think so. And I probably would have given more thought to both of those markets too, if not for that GM philosophy thing that I have going as well, because I don't really want to answer to Rob Blake, because I think he strolled right into an amazing situation with tons of
sounds like Rob Blake could
talents
be maybe out because his contract is up, and
this year
might be he's like his contract is up the end of June, so there might be a scenario there where Mark Bergevin takes over. He's been some kind of VP of hockey ops there, and might be a situation where if they want to keep him before he goes to the Islanders or one of these other opportunities, maybe he takes over in LA. Kind of a so-so track record in Montreal, but probably also easier to operate in LA than it is in Montreal too when we talk about pressure.
Right.
Yeah, and he wasn't handed what Blake was handed. I think that Blake had a really great situation that he kind of made the worst of, to be honest with you.
8 years, no playoff wins.
Yeah, and they made a lot of moves, and it just seems like the prospects they kept versus the prospects they moved out, they got it wrong. It seems like they did a poor job of evaluating their own talent. And I think that the pro scouting side too, some of the moves for the guys they brought in and signed, it just seems like they never chose the right moves. And that boils down to the GM squarely. So I've been really unimpressed with the job that Blake has done there, because LA looked to me like a team of the future that was going to bridge the gap between the Doughty and Kopitar era of greatness and be set up for a ton of success in the future. And now it just looks like they're kind of a bubble team. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, LA has not won a playoff series since they won the Cup in 2014.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And they've run into a Edmonton Oilers team.
And they had
They're probably
Edmonton
so
this
sick
year.
of that team. Yeah, they had a good.
Edmonton.
I agree.
You know, normally if you screw up a coach's challenge, you just got to pay the 2-minute penalty. But I think that's going to cost Jim Hiller his job.
Yeah.
That was kind of the turning point in the series.
Yeah, series changing.
Yeah, and it was a dumb challenge too.
Yeah. Speaking of Blake, can you imagine LA with Dursey and Faber on their defense? Like those are two guys that they got rid of. And I'm not saying that what's his bucket from is it Fiala? I'm not saying Fiala is a bad player, but they traded Faber away for Fiala. And you know,
when they give up like 5 pieces as well for Dubois, right? And I mean, I know at least they turned Dubois into Kemper, but Kemper's 35 years old, and all he had to do in the playoffs was be better than Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, and he wasn't. So
and they kept prospects too. They just kept the wrong ones. You know, Turcotte comes to mind, and there's others. I think that Byfield and Brant Clark have bright futures, and that might be ultimately Rob Blake's saving grace if those two take a huge step forward next year and he's still around. But it's going to be harder and harder to make the playoffs, and it's going to be especially critical for the Utah Mammoth to make the playoffs next season for all of the reasons that we've discussed already. This seems like it's shaping up to be a pivotal year, a watershed moment for the team. And if Bill Armstrong didn't put enough pressure on people already by effectively saying playoffs are bust on breakup day, there seems to be maybe some internal pressures ratcheting up even on him, given all of the rumors that we've heard about John Cooper and what that could mean. So does Bill Armstrong go for broke here? What does this team need to ensure that they're on the right side of the playoff line a year from now? What do you think, Corey? What's the biggest need?
Second line center by far. Barrett Hayton is kind of, I guess Barrett Hayton started as the 1C this year and kind of moved down when Logan Cooley moved up. But so what you're looking at: Cooley, Hayton, McBain, and Stenlund down the middle. Am I missing anyone? I don't think Nick Bukestad is going to be back. So that group is just kind of okay. But what if someone gets hurt? There's still a hole there. So like ideally, you have Cooley, fill in the blank, Hayton, and then Stenlund, and then you could put McBain on the wing. And then in a year from now, when Stenlund's deal is up, you can put Cole Baudouin in that 4th line spot. But really need to fill that 2C spot. I think it's going to be. We've talked about this subject so much. It's so hard to identify the second line centers. I don't think there's going to be one in free agency that's good enough. So I still think Elias Pettersson is an option in Vancouver because I think there might be an opportunity to get him cheaper than he should be, considering, the no move clause and his contract. He only had 45 points this year, and Vancouver's in such a mess. And the other one to me is still Marco Rossi. I know he's short. He's not small. He's short, but there's that restricted free agent opportunity with the offer sheet. Michael Russo, the longtime Wild beat reporter, said 75% chance that he's not going to be back in Minnesota, given the gap in the contract negotiations. He has ties to Andre Tourné. Would be a perfect second line center. And then just to offset the size issue, you can just bring in, I know we're going to have Daniil Boot under contract pretty soon, but still need to bring in some size. And then, beyond the 2C, I think we just need more secondary scoring in the top 6.
What do you think, Kenny?
So I like Barrett Hayton for the second line center role. I was cold on it in the beginning of the year, and frankly, he was just cold. But I really, really liked what I saw in his second half of the season. I'm not saying that there isn't necessarily a need to maybe upgrade him, and then maybe he's an elite third line center. But I'd be comfortable keeping him there and then just bolstering players around him. So we think about it. These guys were all at one point playing on the top line or getting top line power play minutes. And then just listen to the disparity after this. We got Clayton Keller with 90 points. We got Logan Cooley with 65. We got Nick Schmaltz with 63. And then we got Dylan Gunther with 60. All have premier power play minutes or, interchange on the first line here and there. Barrett Hayton is next. As far as forwards go with 46, that's a pretty significant drop off. That's 14 points away from Dylan Gunther, who was out. And then if you just go down the rest of the roster, it's like, oh my gosh, the next highest scoring forward had 28 points. That's Alex Kerfoot. So there is, I would say, besides our top three, maybe even call it top four. I know that doesn't make sense in hockey, but I'm kind of making it try to make sense. There is some serious need from some scoring on that second line. And I think if you look at all the teams that are perennial playoff contenders, they usually do have guys that are putting first line numbers on the second line. And that's it's hard sometimes because if you're thinking of the EA Sports mindset, you're like, well, who do I knock off my first line, to put, let's say, a Mitchell Marner on there, right? Don't think of it that way. It's all interchangeable. It's all fluid. You can add I'm going to just use him again, Mitchell Marner, to this team and have two 90-point players now in your top six. And then you've got, two 60-point players in Gunther and Cooley. I left Schmaltz out of there because I do think that if we were to bring in somebody, I feel like Schmaltz is probably going to be one of the players going the other way. Great year, had a career high. Good for him. I like the player, but I don't know if he's necessarily like a playoff performer. I just don't get that vibe from him. But I think my number one priority is beefing up that top six, like Corey said. And if that's by way of upgrading Barrett Hayton, I do not like Elias Pettersson. I was so happy to hear that there was like a potential there. And speaking of somebody that just doesn't seem like a playoff performer, I think he fits that bill. So it'd have to be someone like random that we're not thinking of, a la Sergachev, at the draft. And I'm still holding on hope. I think it was Trent, it was your original idea, or maybe it was Brad. Let's just throw stupid money at an offer sheet for Nyes and reunite Logan Cooley and Nyes together, and that solves a huge problem, maybe the missing piece on this team.
Yeah, I think that with the playoff series he's having, that may be a little bit of a long shot. And, I want to look at this a little bit differently, right? So I agree with you guys. I think we need to add some size. I'd love to add a center, which is really hard to do. I think the whole league would love to add a second line center. I'm pretty sure there's 29 teams out there that want a second line center. So that's going to be a tall order. The secondary scoring is a must. BA said it, Turney has said it, that if our top line players don't have their A game, they have their B game, then nobody else's A game is good enough. You know what I mean? So we need some additional depth on scoring, I think, is the biggest thing. And then I do want to offset that with some size and some grit as well. I mean, we had a lot of fighting majors. We've got some tough customers, but I think our star players are all a little bit slight. Cooley, Gunther, Keller, Schmaltz. These are not guys who have a lot of LBs. You know what I mean? So I think that's important to underpin them with some size and strength as well. But Corey, I love Marco Rossi too, right? Mm-hmm. And I like some of the other ideas that we've thrown around here. But I talk ad nauseum on the Discord about Mason Marchment maybe, or can we get Barbashev potentially, or some of these guys who check two boxes of the size and grit as well as the secondary scoring. Like ideally, I'd love to add those guys, but given everything we've heard this week about John Cooper and playoffs are bust and what a pivotal year this might be, is Marco Rossi the kind of home run swing? Is Mason Marchment or Ivan Barbashev, are these the kind of swings that a GM who's thinking about keeping his job and arming his coach who's in a playoffs or bust season. Are those big enough moves, or are we thinking a little bit too conservatively here? Does this team need to look to make a huge splash, whether that's Mitch Marner or even, you look at Sam Bennett, and I think we all agree that the next contract he gets won't age well, right? Somebody's going to overpay him on a 7-year deal or an 8-year deal if he stays in Florida. It's probably going to look pretty bad in 3 or 4 years when the wheels start falling off, because that guy is a warrior, but he's pretty average sized. And guys like him don't tend to age well in this league. But if it's playoffs or bust, truly, and you're feeling your seat heat up a little bit, do you throw stupid money at one of these free agents, make a big splash, make your boss happy, snatch some headlines, and let 2 or 3 years from now be damned? Do everything you can to make that push right now without absolutely gutting the prospect pool. What are your thoughts, Corey, on potentially swinging a little bit bigger than what we've been talking about?
Yeah, do both. Do the offer sheet for Rossi. It costs probably a first, a second, a third. I mean, that's going to be the McKenna pick, but I mean, if we're in a position to drop McKenna, then Bill Armstrong is probably out anyway. So make the move for Rossi, go sign Marner, and then you can use chips like Schmaltz and Michelle. I don't think Michelle is coming back at all. And I don't know what his trade value is, but I mean, you can move out those guys to bring in some size. And then I think the other thing too is we don't know the status of Connor Ingram. Obviously, his well-being is the first priority, but we also know that the team can't have any contact with him when he's in that program. So I would like for them to bring in another goalie, just in the event that Ingram can't come back, and then we have a goalie, and then if he does come back, this other goalie can just be put on waivers or traded. So I don't want to get into a position in September where we don't have a backup goal and we're crossing our fingers and looking for something on waivers because Matt Villalta and Jackson Stauber are not up to it to play 30 NHL games next year.
Great point. Yeah, goaltending is definitely probably a secondary focus, but an important one that can't get lost. Now, Corey, you made a great case for how you might be able to kind of make a big swing. Kenny, I'll ask you a little bit differently. Do you think that we do? Do you think that we will see a big giant swing on the level of a Sergachev or on the level of a Marner or something really big this summer? Do you get those vibes? Are you thinking that we're gonna see some fireworks around the draft?
Oh, 100%. I think at this point it's almost a non-negotiable. I think just with how patient Bill Armstrong has been, with an owner that's got deep pockets and wants to compete, with the timeline and how close we were this year, and the splashes he made last year, we know he calls other teams around and pisses off general managers by asking for players that would never be available. And then that's how Sergachev became available to him afterwards. He said he called on him and they're like, what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden, months later, they're like, okay, well, you got our wheels turning. So he's proactive that way. There's probably a player out there right now that we're not thinking of that he's been calling about or trying to negotiate for. And, it's gonna come out of nowhere. I'd say the low-hanging fruit, which kind of feels weird to describe them this way, but I feel like it's just been talked about so much at this point, is that this team backs up the Brinks truck for Mitch Marner. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, I know Toronto just advanced to the second round of the playoffs again. They're going to have a tall order against the Panthers. But the Panthers have also played a lot of hockey the last 3 years. This, two consecutive Stanley Cup appearances. So if the Maple Leafs go on to the third round and Mitch Marner has this incredible, playoff run, I don't know, maybe they do try to find a way to keep him. So I think if Mitch Marner is not priority number one, which I kind of have this weird feeling he is, and all of a sudden we have to pivot off of him because Toronto retains him, there's going to be something in the cards here that's just going to absolutely blow our minds. And I am nervous as hell for it, but also really, really excited about it. So
the Sergachev one worked out. The Sergachev one worked out. Yeah.
It really did.
It's good to have a GM you can trust, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say to fans too,
go ahead,
don't be like, if we have to give Mitch Marner $14 million, basically twice the money of Clayton Keller, I mean, it doesn't mean he's twice the player of Clayton Keller, or it's offensive to Clayton Keller that he's only getting half the money of Mitch Marner. The Clayton Keller deal was signed 5 years ago, and we're heading into a cap that's going to be $115 million. So salaries are going to adjust. Mitch Marner's not looking for $14 million. He's looking for whatever percentage of the cap, and that just happens to be $14 million. And then the other thing I would say is, I just keep going back to the Shea Weber deal. I know we didn't really give up anything worthwhile to dump that with Victor Soderstrom and Aku Rate, and we did get a draft pick back, but there was really no need to get rid of that contract unless we were looking to spend that money. So we're not just helping Chicago hit the floor to just be nice. We're getting rid of the $8 million of Shea Weber because we want to spend it.
He did that as an intimidation move, I think. He's just like, hey, last minute deal before the deadline's over. Just a heads up, guys. I just cleared $8 million. And
we're
I just
coming for you.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Trey, go ahead. Yeah.
I think with the Mitch Marner cap hit, I don't even remember where it was or whether it's accurate, so I probably shouldn't say it on the podcast, but I saw something saying that in like 3 years, $14 million will be something equivalent to $9 million in today's cap. So that's a good way to kind of calm down any heartburn, any acid reflux you get on free agent day, and know that everything's going to be okay in just a few years as that cap continues to climb. Now, my one hesitation on Mitch Marner is really not the money. It's not even really the availability. I think he's going to test the market. I do. I think that Toronto's going to want to commit to Nyes. I think they want that size and playoff battle. I think with William Nylander, and Austin Matthews, who is big but doesn't necessarily always play like a physical game, they may want to mix it up a little bit. And to me, they need to fix that blue line. They've got a lot of things that they need to manage all at once. And moving on from Marner kind of helps them juggle things a little bit more effectively. I don't see a scenario where they can keep Marner and Nyes without severely hindering the rest of the roster. So I think that there's a good chance that Mitch Marner is available. I could eat those words. He might sign a blockbuster deal soon. But
if Toronto had their way, Mitch Marner would be a Carolina Hurricane right now. They already tried to trade him.
True.
Oh, that's right.
True.
So,
good point.
What is Mitch Marner feeling? Like, do you want to resign back with a team? I know it's his hometown team and they drafted him, and he's had some good regular season success there. But like, when they've already tried to move you, are you that committed to going back?
Yeah, and I would say the one hesitation I have on him is not the cash, not the availability. It's really the size. Can you have a top six with Dylan Guenther, who's not short but pretty slight? Clayton Keller, who's he's the size of the dog is pretty small. The size of the fight in the dog is pretty big on him. You've got Logan Cooley, same story, pretty slight. T.J. Ginla's coming up. He's not the biggest guy in the world. Daniel Booth's big, so there's one. Nick Schmaltz doesn't play a very large style physical game. So before you know it, you add Mitch Marner in there, and you're looking a little light in that top six from just a pure tonnage standpoint. So if you sign Marner, how do you counteract that? What do you do in the top six? I don't think it's enough to add, Brazeau or somebody like this to the bottom six where we're already pretty big. I think you have an issue in your top six, top nine when it comes to size. So how do you balance that when you add Mitch Marner? How do you ensure that the team has the physical pushback they need to be competitive, even as you ratchet up the skill level?
Yeah. One thing that's always worth keeping an eye on and keeping your finger on the pulse is first round exits for teams that, would be disappointed. Obviously the Kings there. The Wild, I don't think they're really disappointed. I think, they just had a tough run on injuries and all that. But I struggle to say that the Senators are disappointed. I think they're just happy to make the dance. But, man, what if the player that we're not thinking of is Brady Tkachuk? What if that's the guy, right? Like, what if Bill Armstrong has his sights set on Brady Tkachuk or something along those lines, right? It's gonna. I agree with you. Like, Mitch Marner is he's smaller. Sometimes I question his mental toughness as well. But I understand, like, playing in a hotbed hockey market like Toronto's gotta be a little rough. So I do have my concerns with Mitchell Marner as well, but maybe there's just a player, and maybe it's not Brady Tkachuk, but maybe there's a player out there on a team that still fits the age window and can check all those boxes like a Brady Tkachuk that we're eyeballing here. So
Damn it,
Is
there's
Tampa
not.
Bay
Kenny, I scour
disappointed?
every roster all the time looking for that player, and I don't see
Right.
him anywhere. I
I
don't think he's
know.
out there.
I know.
But with Mitch Marner, I think, the mental toughness thing, he gets a lot of criticism for that. I think about Clayton Keller there, who had a lot of similar criticisms, honestly. Didn't go inside, didn't have the pushback, didn't have the fight, was too easy to play against. And I think we saw that change with the added responsibility. He kind of stepped into a bigger role on the team. And I do wonder if Mitch Marner, being in Toronto, having his reputation sort of settled for him on day one by that crazy market,
Right.
And then having such a strong supporting cast of players to lean on, has made things maybe a little too easy for Mitch Marner to ease right into the story that's been written about him. And maybe if he starts a new chapter somewhere else, we can really see another level from that player in terms of the toughness and the pushback. But it still does leave a size issue in the top six if we do add him. Is the only way to address that to trade somebody like Nick Schmaltz, Corey, and bring in somebody who's maybe not as productive, but maybe a little bigger?
I'm looking at just when Kenny's talking about teams who are disappointed with their first round exits, I'm looking at Tampa. Still a good team.
Hegel.
Yeah,
Hegel.
like this is a team, they're probably going to make the playoffs again next year, but they're probably going to have to play Florida or Toronto in the first round and lose again. Tampa has not won a playoff series in 3 years. Nikita Kucherov has not scored a goal in his last 15 playoff games. They have Kucherov, they have Point, they have Hedman, they have Vasilevsky, but like we spoke about earlier, there's not a whole lot coming. They've kind of moved everything out. They did that again this year with Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde, but maybe we go back to Tampa for the second year in a row. We made the Sergachev deal last year, and then is there a piece we can pick off this year?
Hegel's no trade clause doesn't kick in until next season. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, he would be a
the same age as Sergachev too.
That's crazy.
All kinds of size there, 6'2". I wonder maybe Anthony Cirelli, is he a possibility?
As a center, a piece to help us when it comes to the center depth. I could see that as well. Cirelli would be a great add, and somebody who is a little similar to Barrett Hayton in some ways in terms of like, at least he was going into the season. Is he more of a 3 or more of a 2? But this year he did put up nearly 60 points, so he's definitely.
And you know how you recruit John Cooper to Salt Lake City is you just slowly start bringing all the Tampa players to Utah.
There you go.
Another team that we could potentially look at, just due to the hype going into the playoffs, is if Winnipeg is not able to capitalize and they have another first round exit. Maybe the team looks like Kyle Connor, something along those lines, right? And Kyle Connor's not the biggest guy, but I mean, I feel like he plays a big game. There's probably other players, better examples on those teams, but it is something to keep an eye on. With early first round exits, usually there is some kind of major shakeup with any of those teams.
Would you rather do $14 million for Marner or $10 million for Nick Ehlers?
Marner.
Yeah, I think I'd go Marner too.
Same, because I think Ehlers is probably his best was 63 points, 64 points, I think.
Yeah.
So, and Marner can hit. I think Marner, did he hit 100 this year? If not, he was at like 99. That's a huge gap, right? So.
Yeah, and Marner's penalty killing, two-way play, Selke caliber. I think you get a lot out of Mitch Marner.
He's also a John Cooper favorite.
Ehlers is bigger, but he's not exactly an inside player. You know what I mean? He's taller and more solidly built than Mitch Marner, but I don't know that it makes a meaningful impact on his overall game. So either way. I mean, if it to me, it would be closer if it was like if you could get Brock Besser for less than that. Something approaching like 2/3 or half of Mitch Marner.
Mhm.
Would Besser be a preference? That's somebody to think about too, in terms of really needing that goal scoring piece as well. He's kind of the same age. We've got a heavily American roster, as you see at the Worlds. We've got Keller and Cooley and Doan joining that team. So it's easy to see another Midwestern kid fitting into the lineup here. So I could see, Besser, who's definitely not going back to Vancouver, being a decent fit that doesn't make us any smaller and does add some secondary scoring. So it doesn't feel like a big home run swing, but maybe BA is just confident enough in the steps forward that the young roster players are going to take, that he, even with everything on the line, doesn't really feel the need to swing that big. It's possible.
Right. Maybe one last quick name to keep an eye on if the Stars don't advance. Maybe they look at Jason Robertson.
Oh, I don't know.
They
Really?
just brought in Rantanen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you never know. You never know. So again, I don't think I wouldn't have predicted that Sergachev would have been available when he was.
True.
So as weird as it sounds to like pick our favorite players off of each team, kind of seems like that's what Bill Armstrong likes to do. So
that's true. I would have made the same doubtful noise at the Sergachev suggestion prior to that trade. So you do get surprised sometimes. It's not always the obvious name, like Mason Marchment, potentially from Dallas, who I think still would be a great pickup here. So before we get to the free agent frenzy and the trade bonanza, we first have to get to the NHL draft. And before we get to the NHL draft, we must have the NHL draft lottery, which is Monday, Cinco de Mayo. We will have draft lottery day. So some lucky team will be moving up to first overall and potentially drafting Matthew Schaefer there, who's the odds-on favorite, the left shot defenseman out of the Erie Otters, who missed the majority of the season with injury and illness. And then in the top three there, you probably have Michael Misa, potentially James Higgins, potentially Caleb Denoyer, potentially Anton Frundell. It's a weird draft class where there's not a lot of clarity, not a lot of depth, and a lot of mixed opinions on players. So it's going to be one crazy draft. We will spend a lot of time talking about who we like for Utah at 14th overall, whether we think it's possible to move up in a draft like this. I do. And whether we think it's behooves us to move back where we might be able to get a player we had rated much higher anyway, just because of the lack of variance. This is also an appealing option to me. Can we stock the cupboards with more picks that we can weaponize in trades and kind of have the best of both? I think there's so much potential and intrigue with this draft class. It's not the strongest class we've ever seen, but I think that makes it exciting in its own way because you can't predict what's going to happen. And I think there's going to be a ton of movement up and down in the draft, in and out of the first round. It should be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to dive into that in future episodes here on Clean Hits. We'll revisit the draft once the order is clear after the lottery on Monday. But everybody, please get your Joe Boo doll ready. Light him a cigarette, give him his rum, rub your rabbit's foot, do whatever you got to do and see if Utah could win that lottery. I think we have something like a 1.5% chance or something to move up. And in our case, it would only be to number 4. But boy, oh boy, could we solve a lot of problems that we've talked about here just by moving up to number 4. First of all, that center problem gets solved like that because you generally have to draft those guys. You usually can't acquire those top centers. And there are quite a few really intriguing center options at the top of this draft. So, man, would it be a stroke of good luck if we could win the lottery. But remember, we won't. So we'll have plenty of names to discuss next week when it comes to the draft. Other than that, I really wanted to say thank you so much to Austin Facer at SLC Puck. I wanted to say thank you to our Discord, all of our followers on X, and everybody who helped us get our subscribership up to over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you, Clean Hits community, for all that you've done there. Thanks to, well, let's face it, Liam O'Brien for coming on the show last week and helping with those numbers as well. Thanks to the team for always being so willing to work with us and help us get these great guests. And thank you all for all of your support and helping us to continue to create an awesome community online. If you're not in our Discord, stop what you're doing right now. This episode's run too long anyway. You can go ahead and turn it off. It's fine. As long as you're turning it off, to go sign up for the Discord, get in that community. It's amazing. We've got all your favorite posters from Twitter and none of the ones you hate, all in that Discord, way more active in there than you see on social media, and you won't be accosted by horrific images like you are on Twitter. You can just do the hockey talk only and not have to see politics or anything in our Discord. So please, if you've given up on social media, kudos to you, but come on to the Discord, join up, join the conversation, and be a part of the Clean Hits crew. Anything anyone wants to say, Kenny, Corey?
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to stumble across a little bit of breaking news here, but I pulled up our YouTube channel, and I do notice that the Utah Hockey Club has reinstated their YouTube channel, and now the handle says Utah Ice Hogs. So I don't know what that means. So I don't know, man. They must be big fans of the show, but stay tuned on that one, guys. Stay tuned. But no, that's it, guys. So seriously, thank you so much. I know, right? So thank you guys so much. We're so pumped. We saw that we hit 1,000 subscribers shortly before we joined the show. So it means a lot to us, and we really appreciate you guys. And shout out Austin. Austin's been incredible for us, man. So we appreciate you, Mr. SLC Puck.
Corey, anything you want to part with?
Non-Utah wise, I need a team to cheer for in the playoffs because I had Tampa in my bracket. They're out now, so maybe just go Florida. I mean, they're Florida. Even dirtier than last year. I like how they play, so maybe I'll just go back to Florida.
I'm going Carolina.
And Winnipeg for Canada.
I want to see Logan Stankoven have a big series. You know what I mean? I want him to rebound from that Renton fiasco and come out on top. I think that'd be interesting. So I'm kind of on the Carolina Hurricanes train, I think. Kenny, how about you?
You're not gonna like this, Corey.
I'm gonna turn this off if this is Toronto.
I think I'm a Leafs guy the rest of the way through.
Play the music. Play the music, Corey.
Listen. The only reason why is I'm a big fan of my boy Austin Matthews. And
all right,
I really don't have.
There is a big Arizona contingent there for sure. Matthews and Nyes and Domi and Treliving and
OEL.
Yeah.
There's a lot
for OEL.
There's Arizona saving Toronto hockey.
Yeah, you got Shane Doan. Everything. I love that. So
imagine OEL going from getting bought out from the Vancouver Canucks to winning back-to-back cups, one in Florida and then one in Toronto. Imagine
Vancouver's still paying him too.
Yeah. All right. I'm a little bit convinced. I don't know if I'll ever admit it publicly, but I will. I'll keep that to myself. But anyways, more playoff talk to come next week, more draft talk to come in the coming weeks. We've got more exciting guests that we're working on. Get in the Discord and have a great weekend.
We appreciate you guys.
See ya.